It's happening quietly, but if you look closer, you'll notice it. Canadians who once moved to the US for bigger paychecks, warmer weather, or a taste of the American dream are coming home in record numbers. This isn't about homesickness, or missing Tim Hortons. It's about something bigger. In 2025, a perfect storm is pushing Canadians out of the United States, and pulling them back to a country many once left behind. From rising tensions, and travel boycotts, to concerns over safety, values, and identity, the reasons are deeper than you might think. In the last few months alone, we've seen US-Canada relations hit new lows. Tariffs, political rhetoric, and a growing sense of instability have many Canadians reconsidering what they once thought was the land of opportunity. And it's not just in the news. You can see it in the data. You can hear it in people's stories. Parents, professionals, even long-time residents, all saying enough. So, what's driving this reverse migration? Why now? And could this shift change both countries forever? In this video, we're unpacking some of the most powerful and surprising reasons why Canadians are moving back. And once you hear them, you might start questioning where home really is. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We've got more real-world stories that matter every single week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. In the summer of 2025, a clear message is coming from Canadian travelers, and it's loud and undeniable. Canadians are turning away from the United States, not just for vacations, but for good. According to newly released data from the Canadian government, cross-border travel has dropped significantly. In July alone, car trips to the US were down nearly 37% compared to the same month last year. Flights followed the same pattern, falling by more than 25%. This marks the 7th consecutive month of decline. And it's not because Canadians suddenly dislike sunny beaches or big city shopping. It's because something deeper is happening. Many Canadians say they no longer feel comfortable supporting or spending money in a country where political and economic tension is boiling over. Recent events, including heated trade disputes and inflammatory comments from US leaders, have caused a sharp rise in anti-American sentiment. Social media is full of Canadians cancelling trips, ditching US subscriptions, and making intentional decisions to buy Canadian. And for those already living in the States, these signs are hard to ignore. People are asking themselves, why stay in a place that's becoming more hostile toward the country I call home? The steady decline in cross-border travel isn't just about tourism. It reflects a larger shift in mindset. And for many Canadians living in the US, it's the first sign that it might be time to go back before things get worse. In the face of rising tensions with the United States, something unexpected has been happening across Canada. A surge in national pride. It's not just polite patriotism or waving a flag on Canada Day. It's something bolder, louder, and more determined. It's called the Elbows Up movement. What started as a simple hockey phrase, a nod to being tough and ready for a challenge, has now become a national rallying cry. Elbows Up represents a growing feeling among Canadians that it's time to stand firm, protect their values, and draw a clear line between Canadian identity and American influence. You'll see it on t-shirts, protest signs, hashtags, and even in political speeches. It's part pride, part resistance, and it's spreading fast. For Canadians living in the US, this movement hits differently. Watching their home country rise up with renewed unity and confidence, many are starting to feel disconnected from the culture they're currently living in. In contrast to the often polarized, individualistic atmosphere in the US, the Elbows Up spirit reminds them of a country that still values collective good, mutual respect, and stability. People aren't just moving back for jobs or healthcare anymore. They're moving back because they want to be part of something that feels familiar and proudly Canadian. The Elbows Up movement is more than a trend. It's a symbol of home. And it's giving thousands of expats the nudge they needed to come back. Tensions between Canada and the United States hit a boiling point in early 2025, when a series of aggressive tariffs were introduced by the US government. These weren't just minor policy tweaks, they targeted key Canadian industries like aluminium, dairy, and timber, and were backed by inflammatory comments suggesting that Canada should be grateful for access to the American market. Some US officials even hinted that Canada would be better off as the 51st state. That was the last straw for many Canadians, both at home and abroad. The backlash was immediate and widespread. Across Canada, political leaders, business owners, and everyday citizens responded with sharp criticism and calls to action. Many began boycotting American goods, cancelling travel plans, and openly supporting local Canadian businesses instead. The message was clear: Canada would not be bullied or belittled. For Canadians living in the US, these events hit especially hard. Many reported feeling caught in the middle, like outsiders in the place they had once chosen to live. Some even described feeling targeted, or looked down on simply for being Canadian. And while the economic impact of the tariffs was measurable, the emotional impact was even greater. This economic Cold War has pushed many expats to re-evaluate their place in the US. Why stay in a country that sees your home as a competitor, or worse, as a subordinate? For a growing number of Canadians, the answer is simple: it's time to go home. One of the most persistent and emotionally charged reasons Canadians are moving back home is the growing fear of gun violence in the United States. While this issue isn't new, it has become harder and harder to ignore. In 2025, mass shootings continue to dominate headlines, and gun ownership remains deeply embedded in American culture. For Canadians who grew up in a country where gun violence is rare, the daily reality in many US cities feels not only foreign, but terrifying. Parents in particular are sounding the alarm. Canadian families living in the US have shared stories of their children participating in lockdown drills at school, learning how to hide under desks, or barricade classroom doors. That level of preparedness might be necessary in the US, but for many it feels dystopian and wrong. It's not just about schools either. There's a growing anxiety around public spaces, malls, movie theaters, grocery stores, even places of worship. Everyday outings come with a sense of risk that simply doesn't exist in most parts of Canada. That difference, that constant calculation of danger, is one of the clearest lines dividing the two countries. For Canadians who left home in search of opportunity, this reality is forcing a hard question. Is any job, salary, or city worth the mental toll of always being on alert? More and more are saying no, and with each new headline, each close call, or even just each conversation with worried family back home, they're choosing safety. They're choosing Canada. For many Canadians living in the United States, the most jarring difference isn't cultural or political. It's financial. Specifically, it's the staggering cost of healthcare. Even in 2025, with various reforms and insurance options available, the American healthcare system remains one of the most expensive and confusing in the world. And for Canadians accustomed to publicly funded care, it's a shock to the system, both emotionally and financially. Stories are everywhere. A simple emergency room visit for a sprained ankle can cost over $1,000. Routine medications can cost 10 times more than they do back home. And for those with families, the costs of childbirth, pediatric care, and regular checkups can be devastating, even with so-called good insurance. One Canadian teacher living in the US described the fear she felt not of getting sick, but of getting a bill. Another working in tech had to crowdfund for an unexpected surgery, despite having full-time employment. These aren't rare exceptions, they're becoming the norm for expats caught in a system that profits off basic health needs. Back in Canada, while the healthcare system isn't perfect, it's predictable. There's no need to check if a hospital is in network, or worry about deductibles and surprise charges. That peace of mind, knowing you can get care without a bill that could ruin your finances, is increasingly priceless. For many Canadians in the US, the realization is painful, but clear. It's not worth it. And so, they're packing up and heading home where getting sick doesn't have to mean going broke. One of the quieter, but most relatable reasons Canadians are moving back home is simple: they're tired. Not just tired in the everyday sense, but burnt out by the pace, pressure, and relentless hustle culture that defines much of life in the United States. In 2025, the grind is still glorified. Long hours, short vacations, minimal parental leave, and an ever-present expectation to do more, faster, with less support. For many Canadians, this lifestyle eventually takes a toll. They find themselves working 60-hour weeks, with little time for family, hobbies, or rest. Even when they're successful on paper, many say they feel disconnected and unfulfilled. Life starts to feel like a loop of working, commuting, and recovering, only to do it all again the next day. In contrast, Canada's cultural rhythm offers something slower, softer, and more balanced. Whether it's the extended maternity and paternity leave, the social expectation to actually take your vacation days, or just the general value placed on quality of life, Canada feels like a breath of fresh air. People aren't just moving back for policies, they're moving back for peace. They want to walk their kids to school, without checking emails. They want to take weekends off, without guilt. They want to feel like humans, not productivity machines. For those worn down by the grind, the decision to leave isn't sudden. It builds quietly, day after day, until one morning they realize, home isn't just a place, it's a pace. And Canada gets it. So, while the American dream still shines for some, more and more Canadians are realizing it comes at too high a cost. From safety to sanity, the pull of home is stronger than ever. If this spoke to you, like and subscribe, and let us know, would you move back too?